Hello, Mike. How are you?
I
Hey,
fine.
hey, we're you caught us. We're putting each other through the Turing test, and um, hey, it's our week October. We're all into horror movies this month, and we decided to focus in on a couple of science fiction horror movies. Mike, I'm getting a little bit of a echo on I think on your audio.
Yeah, let me try to fix that real quick here while you take us in.
All right, yeah. Well, you're here with the first, the last, the Nerdom, and we're going to be talking about Ex Machina and uh, Annihilation this week. A couple of movies by Alex Garland. He both wrote and directed these. He wrote a few movies before with Danny Boyle directing, like 28 Days Later and the or 28 Days and
Yeah, right,
the
wrote that
Sunshine,
screenplay. Yeah.
yeah, and Sunshine, and then he also wrote Dread. But Ex Machina is Alex's first foray into directing, and then Annihilation was a few years later. He directed that as well. We're gonna get all up into the science fiction and the horror, and so hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, I'm happy to be back this week. Like you said, we're doing this whole month. We're doing horror movies,
Hmm.
and Alex Garland was so good. We decided to keep rolling with him because he definitely has a very solid handle on this, on the sci-fi as well as the horror genre for sure.
Hmm.
And it was a pleasure to watch these for sure. Um, yeah, I definitely have my thoughts on one. I think one was, in my opinion, one just a little bit better than the other, but we'll get into that. But Annihilation, it's very interesting. Like this, uh, these are very well played out, and a lot of a lot of things to think about with the concepts that they introduce, for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, with both of them, my mind was kind of even on my second viewing, these were my second viewing. Yeah, my mind was going quite a bit. Think about all different concepts and different things. And yeah, the cool thing about Ex Machina is that it's such a it's ideal wise, it's such a big movie, but as far as how it's played out, it's a very small movie in that you have just three or four characters that you're dealing with, one that doesn't even speak. That that it's almost like a without the visual excitement that's going on, it almost plays like a play in one sense that it's really about the characters interactions. And one of the things I read was Alex wanted to do it pretty much without any action, so you really had to depend upon the characters interactions and the intensity, and you had to get like some really good actors there, which is pre Star Wars a Force Unleashed or a Force Awakens.
Yeah,
So you have Domhnall.
2014. Yeah,
Yeah,
2014. Right.
so this right before Domhnall Gleeson and Oscar Isaacs went on to their big Star Wars fame in the Force Awakens.
It
But
is.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the I I don't think I've seen Oscar Isaac suck at acting in anything, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And but for the most part, the acting was very good. I of
Mhm,
the two, I won't spoil it. Like this was my favorite,
mhm,
surprisingly, over Annihilation. Not to say that Annihilation was bad at all. It wasn't.
mhm,
But I think I prefer this one a little bit more for the purity of the storyline and the concepts
mhm.
involved. You know,
Yeah.
like with everything
Yeah.
being equal, it's very good.
Yeah, it's a simple concept, a simple idea that inspires really complex thinking about it. It's it harkens back to Frankenstein. I mean, it's basically Frankenstein's monster, creating or is it a monster? Is it that we just don't understand the
Right.
monster, uh, or we think we understand them, and we place our human emotions onto that so-called monster, and is that monster really the monster, or is it us? It makes you kind of uh, the the way it's set up. The Domhnall character, what was his name? Not Nathan, but
Let me pull that up.
Nathan's his character, but I think
Caleb.
it's Caleb.
Or-
I keep wanting to call him Chad, but he's not a Chad. He's a Caleb. Yeah,
That's funny.
Caleb. But the basic storyline is that Caleb works for this big company called Blue Book, which is kind of a stand-in for, like, say, Facebook or Google or something like that, some big
Right.
tech company. And he wins the lottery. His The big CEO has a lottery to go fly out to his big land. I was going to say mansion, but it's more of less a bunker situated on the side of this mountain.
It's kind of like a
That's
compound kind of
Yeah,
vibe kind of thing,
yeah,
like a
right,
or if you want to be like a billionaire's retreat, like secret layer.
yeah,
I guess
right,
would be
exactly.
another way, like that would be a better way to put it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and so yeah, he wins a lottery to spend the week with him. So he has no idea what he's going to be doing, and turns out that his big boss man is working on artificial intelligence, and he's created I guess a cyborg, not cyborg, but a robot, or um, and he's tasked with giving it the Turing test, which the test to see if an AI can fool a human, basically. So he's supposed to give it the test, and he's all excited, but things go quickly wrong after after that.
Yes, they do. They kind of you kind of get slid into. Not only is the place creepy, but you also kind of get into this the mental the hallways of humanness and what it means,
Mhm.
and its impact on human beings and this not human, like
Mhm.
this Ava, I believe is the main
Yeah,
machine's name.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ava.
Eh, yeah, and this whole thing, also to note, is what was her name? Yeah, Gyoko. Like, she
Uh,
doesn't speak English, so that there can't be like any leaks or something like that. So
mhm.
it's already a hostile environment to
Mhm.
Caleb when he walks into this anyway.
Yeah,
So it's all kind
yeah.
of like arm's length, very
Mm.
reserved, that kind of, but you get that
Yeah.
over through and through with the characters. That's what I got from this.
Yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
barrier
yeah,
between you and them, not only with this machine that's also artificial barrier anyway, but it kind of it plays the type for this for the
right.
storyline. And when we
Yeah.
when as we kind of get into it more, what do you think about that?
Yeah, whole we are familiar with the stereotype of the big tech mogul guy like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. You have that
Right.
kind of nerdy, but kind of kind of raises themselves above whatever. But when you meet Nathan, he kind of plays against type. He's definitely not Steve Jobs. He's very much a bro, and he like exercising. He's hungover when he meets him because he's been getting all night, and Caleb's like, "Oh, how was the party?" And he's like, "What party?" He's just drinking. So yeah,
I mean,
he's
every day.
in.
You
Yeah.
mean you mean a normal Tuesday or something like that or whatever?
Exactly. Yeah, and he kind of goes through extremes. He's exercising one day and eating brown rice to cleanse his body, and then the next he's drinking himself to oblivion. And Oscar does a great job. It's unlike any of his other performances. He's really knows how to like dial into it character, and he makes Nathan very unlikable. But you're intrigued by him. Nathan's very intriguing, which you don't know how much of it is an act, because he at times plays off being a doofus, being a drunk, that doesn't know really what's going on. He's created this AI, so he's smart. So you don't know if it's an idiot savant situation, but he has also built up a successful business as well. So you're really kind of playing in your mind, as is Caleb. Caleb is very mystified by Nathan, because Caleb keeps making these famous quotes and stuff, and Nathan's, oh, that's, you really know how to, you know what you're thinking, you know how, you have a way with your words and stuff, like, and he's acting like he's never heard these phrases before.
Yeah, I feel like, aside from like this was kind of like a hall of mirrors, and all of the
Mhm.
mirrors kind of were built and designed to reflect on Nathan,
Mhm.
and the fact that Caleb has a way with words and knows how to communicate and whatever is it.
Mhm.
There is, I kind of, now that we're talking about it, I had this thought that it's hard for me to grab a hold of and describe, but there's something there very strongly with communication and being verbal and all the ways that we humans communicate as a primary means.
Mhm.
And there is that aspect there that was just fascinating to me with Nathan and Caleb and how they interacted, and then how Caleb
Mhm.
interacted with all the machines. Oops.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
uh, because like I said, it's just interesting as we go into it. Like I
Yeah.
really want to watch through this again and kind of like dissect
Mhm.
it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I've been dying to do that with one of these movies, but like there's just a lot of we will do, we'll try to do our version of justice to it, but there's a lot of layers, just like last week.
Mhm.
But it's just very interesting. It leaves you with the concept of quite a few questions on like what is humanity really is,
Mhm.
what does it mean to be
Yep.
human, like what is it like, it also, because you have the archetype of being the billionaire kind of
Mhm.
bro kind of type, and like just
Mhm.
doesn't really see people for who they are, just kind of like they're just there to serve his, either you're there to serve his purpose or you don't exist.
Mhm.
Like, which is kind of like you get this confusing, like you were saying, like his diet, he just drinks himself to oblivion, a good way to put it, and then but yet he's working out and eating these meals, and it's
Mhm.
very confusing.
Yeah.
um so like it's just interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, he's he's one of those guys that goes from extremes, and even the environments that he puts himself into are extreme. Like outside the house is this lush mountainside with the amazing waterfall and all this greenery, this beautiful. And then when you go into his, like you said, his compound, there's no, once you get down into the inner layers, there's no windows, there's nothing. It's very claustrophobic. And so those dichotomies are there as well. It's like one extreme or the other. And also and all of the actors are really good in it. Caleb is kind of understated. He's not real showy as Oscar
No.
is in his character portrayal, but you're immediately attached to Caleb and are looking at things through his eyes, and it really plays well because of Nathan's very abrasive personality.
My
You're kind of
God.
put off by it, like Caleb is. So you're really in the seat, Caleb. And then when you
You
meet
really
the
are.
AI for the first time, Ava, and you see those interactions, they're both sort of innocent kind of people. They're
Right.
both kind of innocent to the situation. Neither one of them know fully what's going on, or so you think.
Right.
But yeah, and and the whole, uh, I liked uh how that, because Ava's kind of locked up. She doesn't have free roam of the
No.
compound.
No,
So she has this.
in more than one sense too. In more than one
Yeah,
sense too.
yeah, and Caleb's goes into the little box, so to speak. You might find a picture of it in the
Oh yeah.
pictures, but there's kind of like a windowed box that he's in, to interact with Ava, and Ava has kind of a U-shaped, um kind of, area that she could walk around as she talks to Caleb, and it's
Shoot.
almost it's almost like a zoo in that, and she's sort of like a tiger panther kind of pacing around as she talks to him, and you get a sense that she's contained, she's caged, that she wants to be out of it. But yeah, and also the actress that plays Ava, she's also a dancer, which I think plays into her physicality. She's very much aware that she's playing this AI that's not human, not completely human. So her movement's very human, but slightly off on her movement.
Great point. Yeah, and I didn't know that she was a dancer, but she does bring, even though it's CG, some of this is CGI and some of it is real actor, like the practical effects kind of thing. Like it's insofar as like the face is real, and that's the actual face of the actress. The actor displaying this, like she has that physicality, and there's just like there's like a slight delay, or you kind of notice him like, huh, okay, that's uncanny valley, kind of sort of thing going on here a little bit, which is a famous article that was written about the more that which basically says that the more a robot or machine looks human and acts human, the more it kind of like humans can kind of see that, and it creates a ever widening gap, so to speak, of like, you look human, you sound human, but there's something other about you that is
there's dissonance, I guess, is a good way of putting it. And so Caleb immediately is charmed by Ava at that first meeting. He's sort of a little he's taken with Ava immediately, and she seems to be taken with him, and so they immediately build this kind of rapport together. And then so the meeting afterwards with Nathan, Caleb's like, well, we can only go so far with the Turing test. You're basically testing whether or not she passes as human with the language, just talking back and forth. And he goes, and she obviously does that. Which you're really wanting to know is, say, he brings up the idea of the computer playing chess. Does the computer actually know that it's actually playing chess? It's acting like it wants to win, but doesn't really understand winning, and doesn't want to win. So he goes, we need to go deeper into her understanding and motivation. Does she have motivation? Does she know what's going on? Does she have these personal motivations that make you human? And there's some things I know we probably both want to get a little bit into spoilers. So for both of the movies, because there's some key things at the end. So we'll save all the spoilers for the very end of our show. So if you don't want spoilers, you can dip out at that point before we get into spoilers. But yeah, so this part will be spoilery as far as that regard. But we will
before we kick off to that point. I would just say that this just reinforces the thing I've been saying as a joke, kind of like the machines will rise and never trust a machine. I'll leave it at that, but please go on, my friend. Go on.
Yeah, that and Oscar Isaac as Nathan has some dance moves. I don't know.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, along with being a colossal, he knows how to play. Pardon my French, but he knows how to be a colossal butthole. To like, for sure, for damn sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do own both movies on Blu-ray, and they've got extensive extras, so I did dip through a lot of that. And I guess they did South by Southwest, which is a thing in Austin where it used to be like just be a musical festival, but they also do movies now as well. And I guess they premiered the movie there and had a big sort of interview thing there as well. You got a little bit more insight into what Alex Garland was thinking while he's making it, and also they had Oscar Isaacs there as well. But they talked about that they were very meticulous in how they created all the characters. Oscar Isaacs knew that he wouldn't be since he goes through these extremes, his appearance would be extreme as well. They figured he would either have super long hair, like a hermit, or he would just shave it all off, so he wouldn't have to bother with his hair. And so yeah, so as you can see in that picture, he's got the shaved head and he's got the full beard. You know, it's very low maintenance as far as upkeep, and his clothes aren't very flashy either. He's not like this flashy CEO. The things that are flashy about him is everything around him, the stuff that he collects around. And
Yeah, he definitely has the aesthetic of walking around his basically walking around his home, essentially barefoot, and you know, just he walks around very casual because this is his domain, kind of thing. Like that was kind of like a thing, but that adds anything to it. But like, man, the more I see Oscar Isaac, the more, oh man, this like he is this amazing actor, and it's really, really good. I was going to say, like a side note, kind of before we get too much in the weeds, like, so there was a show on HBO called Silicon Valley.
Yep.
And they actually made fun of this character. They had the show Artificial Emotional Intelligence. But anyway, like there's like this character that I'll see if I can try to find a picture, but you can kind of see it in this clip here. I'm not gonna play it, but like this head or whatever is like basically it kind of copies. It looks very similar to Ava, essentially, and it's like it plays on that. But there are throwback jokes to that I realize that I've seen this before. Anyway, it's kind of like a funny thing, like where she starts and it kind of the plot of this episode kind of plays into it. Maybe one day we can cover this show this is one of my all-time favorite series, period. It's just so funny, and it's a Mike Judge series, so it's no wonder I love that. And we've covered things in the past from him. But anyway, he does kind of poke fun at this concept, because you have this kind of like 3/4 machine, definitely a machine body, but you can see that it's a human face, like just like kind of the right there behind there, like the promo stills that they had. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of throw that in,
right,
for folks. That's another layer of entertainment you can enjoy. But he kind of pulling it back. Sorry, I just had to mention that before we got too far in the weeds.
Oh, yeah. No problem. Yeah, I enjoyed that show too as well. And then one of the things that kind of stood out to me for Ex Machina is that it came for the TV show Westworld, and I think a lot of the DNA that the Westworld pulls from is from Ex Machina. They're not copying, but the whole a lot of the concepts, ideas about AI are shared between the two. Yeah.
Yeah, trust and betrayal. You know what? Again, kind of like I guess better deception. I think is kind of the root of the movie at large. As a spoiler, that kind of gives you an indication of like what's going on. Like there's just layers of deception, like where we kind of go into this, and also kind of believing what you want to see, or what you see is what you believe. That kind of thing. Caleb suffers from that, I think, throughout this. Like he wants to see and he wants to believe in it. And at the end of and again, just like all really good movies that I really love, that's probably why I love this one too. And Annihilation was not far away from as far as that goes, because it also leaves you in. I love Alex Garland because he treats the audience mature and adult, and he like leaves it up to you to figure out how do you like, what do you think? You know, is the machine like? It also kind of dumps us off into a very Blade Runner type ending, and also a Blade Runner 2049 type ending, in my opinion. Like where you're kind of left with like, what happens next? Does it kind of are we seeing the story, a creation story, so to speak, for this new machine and how it interacts and how it goes about? And
Yeah.
I don't want to get too far. I don't want to give away the ending. But you're at the end of the day, you're kind of left with this thing of like, it very much reminded me of 2049 and Blade Runner in general, like
Right.
for how it ended. If that kind of, I hope that doesn't give too much away. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think all of his movies, even Men
Yeah,
and a lot of
sure.
stints to Dread as well, you're left wanting more at the end of each of his
That
movies.
is so
You're
true.
wanting more.
You know what? That's a better way. That's a good way to put it too. Like you want to see more. You want to know more. You want to know what happened, like
Mhm,
beyond just like what you think might have happened. But
mhm.
that's kind of the thing that kind of it kind of sticks with you, and like you don't want to give it up.
Yeah, there's there's that
No.
line, and I'm bad about remembering lines or ideas and not really realizing where it came from. And sometimes I'll think of stuff on my own, or I think I'm thinking of something on my own, and my younger sister is very good about saying, "Oh, well, that's from that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I'm not all that original. Yeah, there's the someone said something about, yeah, there are no happy endings. There's just stopping at a good point. Yeah, you know.
That's
Eh,
good. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
mhm. Because there's something going on, but beyond that happy ending. So yeah, there's and
Very much so.
there's idea, especially with this movie. There's Caleb, for the most part, thinks he's in a privileged position. He's the guy that can come into this environment and then leave. He can leave
Right.
at any time. He has this. He ha- Whether or not it's true or not, he has this understanding in his head that he can leave whenever he wants. And then Ava's the trapped one, and he's with that, and he's okay with that. He's at his heart, he's most likely a good character, but he's accepting of wrongs, of potential wrongs. You know, is it wrong to age an AI, even though she's expressed interest in leaving? So
Kind of. Right.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's almost like she's in a cage in a zoo. She's pacing around, and then but she's you know, an animal probably is somewhat self-aware of that they're locked away, but they don't have the understanding of a human, where she does. And she's, as he's observing and testing her, she's observing and testing him. And there's the scene where she puts on human clothes and puts some hair on, and you get the sense of her wanting to impress Caleb. But
Right.
why is she wanting to impress him?
Right.
Is it that she wants him to be her friend, or is she manipulating Caleb? Uh,
And Nathan is kind of like a foil because Nathan, like
mhm,
yes, we see it from Caleb's perspective, but Nathan comes through like a bull in a china shop and says, "Look, man,
mhm,
no, dude, it's not what you think it is." So there's
mhm,
that kind of counterpoint to like throw enough doubt in there. But you definitely can see that something is going on with Ava because she wants something from the situation, which is funny because at the end of the thing, that in a way that kind of passes the test, so to speak, because
mhm.
you see that there is something that's non-programmed that it wants. The machine wants something, and it knows it thinks it has a strategy to get there, and that is a very human um, reaction or very human behavior to basically we do it all the time. We're hungry. We know what we want. We see a goal. We achieve the goal. We do it a billion times more throughout our lives every day. So a machine can't do that by its nature. Even if it's programmed,
Mhm,
it can't do that. It cannot adapt. Programs, machines are very limited with their set of instructions. That's what a program is,
mhm,
and it only can do the thing that its programming allows it to do, and maybe a little bit a scooch beyond that, but it's still well within the scope of what it's supposed to do. But a
mhm,
machine, a true AI, is that it can see and react to its environment like a human, like a dog, like a cat, like a monkey, like a human. And that's something that this movie kind of covers. And it's just like, does Ava get there? Is she really into Caleb, or is it manipulation? Sorry, I just wanted to expand upon that little point. I just want to kind
Right,
of
yeah,
crack it open a
no
little
problem.
bit more and talk about it.
Yeah, and another point is with technology focused movies or TV shows, run the risk of outdating yourself. Say if you're
That's a good point.
looking into like Facebook or something, or Twitter or something, if you get too much into the weeds and uh lean into the meme society that's currently and going on today, if you let your movie kind of lean into that, you're gonna date yourself within a year or two.
Pretty quick.
Whereas yeah, as whereas this movie is very kind of step away from all that, and it becomes kind of timeless in a sense, because at one point we're going to have AI that's smart like Ava and whatnot, but there's probably going to be a ways away from that. And even then there'll be a conversation point as far as what did we get right, what did we get wrong. But it's a very very smart movie, and it's got these universal ideas that have been played around with since, like I said, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So there's these core ideas that don't age, and they treat it as such. And then there's a in the panel that they did at South by Southwest, the moderator pointed out the key cards in it, how kind of quaint and antiquated they are now, because a lot of it's biometrics. And and Alex Garland kind of laughed and said, that's probably because even though he's very science fiction oriented as far as his movies and the ideas he comes up with, he's very anti-technology as well. He's doesn't have a Facebook, he's not on Twitter, so it's so not completely up to date on the latest technology with cell phones and whatnot. And the reason why he came up with that idea is that he saw something with Bill Gates several years ago where he had his compound had key cards, and it only allowed you into certain places, and he thought that was a kind of a cool idea. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree with you. I really agree with you. I think this is a movie that is in 20 years, people are gonna know this movie and remember it. I think that is not necessarily true for Annihilation, but that's just because like I'm fascinated by stories about AI and machines rising and that sort of thing. Like many people in science fiction.
Mhm.
I'm not saying anything bad about Annihilation, but I think over the long haul, I think this one will become more prominent as time goes on, and it really touches on a lot of classic things. Again, I'm blown away by Alex Garland. He's like my most recent favorite like author, like up there with like Denis Villeneuve and
Mhm.
Chris Nolan and all these other guys that I've like over the last year or so that we've done the show, that we've actually got to kind of zoom in and focus on what we like and what we don't
Mhm.
like, and the aspects of therein.
Mhm.
This is only going to grow, and like this again, this is kind of like I would say this is the more that that we talk about it, the more that like I kind of analyze it and think about it. Like this is definitely in my top list of movies. Like I'm not gonna say top 20, but I'll say like top 50 movies. Like just for being unique and thought provoking, and really taking something. And again, Westworld, like you mentioned that in the past. Westworld was based off of a movie, I believe in the late 60s, I think,
Yeah, I think so.
maybe
Yeah,
early 70s. I think it was
I
in the
think.
60s for sure. But
Mhm.
Westworld was it kind of took its concept. It was a little bit different than the TV show. And again, I need to get to the TV show and catch up to that because
Mhm.
I did fall in love with that at first. I think I just kind of I think I petered out around the season 2 or something. But again, it's the same thing, same concept of like machines and humans interacting, a little bit more in a direct face-to-face way kind of thing. But
Mhm.
what did you think about the ending? Kind of, I don't want to give it away, But it's funny because and blood is spilled. I'll just leave it at that. And the way that it's
well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Limited to spoilers. But when we get out of spoilers, we'll do jazz hands. So when you see jazz hands, you could jump back in.
I'll keep it very generic in that when things happen, they happen in a very personal and intimate, face-to-face kind of way.
Right.
Like I'll leave it at that. And because the way that it goes is very it's very personal. But it also kind of coming back to your question at the beginning of like, well, what happened? Was she manipulating? Was she not? But at the end of the day, you are left with certain things like where there was a conscious choice that the machine made, and when it made it, and I definitely am in the column of like Ava is definitely is alive, has some kind of a consciousness, and is definitely alive, so to speak, like alive, well, like having its own independent consciousness and whatnot beyond this program.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't notice this, but Alex Garland points it out. It makes complete sense, and I agree with him. And it's a beautiful moment. And once you go back to rewatch it, look for it. There's a scene where Ava's by herself. I'll just say that to keep it kind of vague. By herself, and she smiles because she's happy with the situation that she's in, and that tells you that she's smiling for herself, and that is a very human thing to do. And so that tells you that she has she is something outside of anything manipulation of humans. She has her own thoughts, and she has her own feelings, and she's happy at that moment. And that's the key moment for him in the movie, and showing you that she is human. And the interesting thing is Caleb is the protagonist at the beginning of the movie. But as you go on, they do expertly twist it over, and Ava becomes the protagonist.
Yep.
And that's the cool thing about this movie, is that you could stay with any of the characters. You're not penalized for focusing on it. So if you stay with Caleb through the whole movie, it really turns into a horror movie towards the end, and it plays out. But if you follow Ava, maybe it's more of an inspirational movie and not a horror movie. But I mean, Nathan isn't the CO guy. He's not a stereotype. He's not anything that. So if you wanted to say invest your wealth into invest into this guy in the movie, fair game, because Oscar Isaac embodies that character, and you understand him to a certain extent, and you could follow that character's motivations there. You can understand who he is. Alex Garland, he does not judge any of his characters to any strict degree, and that's why I like, because to a lesser degree, to talk about the movie last week as well as these movies today, with a lesser writer, if you give those concepts to a lesser writer, it would probably have been more of a propaganda movie. Yes Queen movie.
they would mess it up. They would screw it up. They would not. That is why I think I love Alex Garland, because my true love, as you know, you're coming from the background of horror, that genre, that's your love. You have comic books, you know that inside out. I know it a little bit, but for me that is sci-fi books. So when I see and read or not see but read science fiction books that are really, really good, they do the same thing that a great movie does. They leave you with this thought of like, they leave you thinking about something or some concept or some aspect of this, and you really with this movie, I don't think that he would not be the director he was or he is if he did not have the skill of writing that he does. That's probably why I love his, like, this was a surprise for me. Like both of these movies, like they were like he is just such a great. I guess I don't know how I'm trying to put my praise, but like the fact that he knows how to write and understands character development in writing, and that you have to you can't show that on the screen in a certain way. That has to come from understanding the character inside and out, and he nails this 100%, because you have this dichotomy of Caleb, who is believing one thing, and then Nathan, who is believing another thing, and you're kind of like shuttled along kind of sort of like Nathan's viewpoint a little bit, as it's introduced. Like, look, it's a toaster, man. It makes toast. What else do you want from it? Like that. But that's a poor analogy, but it still stands in place. But Caleb is like, I don't know, man. But as it unrolls, you kind of see how it ends, and I'll just leave it there. And you definitely have kind of a shift of spectrum of like you said, there are like kind of like winks to the audience about the state of how is this just a program? Is it a human? Is it another version of humanity? And I kind of tilt this on the head a little bit to make it even more science fiction. Like there's like forever there's the concept of humanity. Is there other life out there? Will we ever see it? Will we ever know it? Yada yada yada. Maybe not. Whatever. And there's also there's the Fermi paradox, which is a mathematical equation to say, in theory, a universe is XYZ big, and if it's this big and it has this many solar systems and planets and you can kind of come out with a finite number of like, is there life out there or whatever. But anyway, it's kind of funny because this is also that play on that classic sci-fi play of like, is there life out there? And this movie, in another way, in kind of a different way, like normally you would say that from outer space and but it also can be true. Will humanity create life? That kind of thing. And you're left with that. That's also another aspect that I got from this, like that you would not normally get. It's kind of like the inverse of that, out in space and alien life and all this and all that, but is there life out there? And it's like, well, I don't know. This movie leaves you with the aspect of like, yes, but that's up to the audience to decide, and I'll leave it there. I don't want to give too much away, but very much so. That's what I was left with too. Like, and I love that too about this movie, which is like, it puts you in paradoxes and positions to analyze what does it mean. And I won't go through the whole cliche of what is human, or whatever, blah blah blah. But
it makes you step outside yourself and to observe what is human, which is a very, very interesting perspective to put yourself into, because you're always, well, I'm a human, of course, but yeah, and since there's not really artificial intelligence that it is in the movie, we're not really in that position to really think concretely about it, but it's a fun exercise to kind of think about and to know that it's a potential in the future. And then there was another point in the South by Southwest panel that was pretty entertaining with Oscar Isaac. They posited the idea of the moderators, why female? Why were Nathan making AI that looks like females? And
oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, please go on. This is good.
Yeah, and Alex Garland was saying, well, it's kind of inspires Caleb, his protective nature is triggered by the female form, and Nathan is very manipulative, and so his and he comes across as like a bro, very masculine. So he's I guess he feels that the female is inferior, so he has control over the AI. And Oscar Isaac says, yeah, it probably still have worked if he was making small boys, but that would have been a whole different movie. You'd be going pedophile. But
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, cheese pizza, CP, cheese pizza for sure. Like that is the thing. We don't want to. We don't want to get too in the thing. But yeah, you know what about that though? About the female to answer that. And I think he answered it in a very smart way. He answered in the inverse way of like, well, he wouldn't be saying that if it was like, like what you just said, but like at the same time, duh, Adam and Eve. I mean, that's like the most classic friggin' trope that you could have for that. And the male dynamic, the male archetype, the female archetype has been played over and over again. Of course, the good movies, the great movies get it right. And I would even argue and say that this is one of the great movies that gets it right. He understands that dichotomy. Again, this is nothing. Well, this is like way before The Message, or that kind of that highly contentious kind of political whatever the hell you want to call it was even a thing. And I'm glad, because I don't know that it could be made in the way that it was made today without, there would be screeching on Twitter, or the blue checkmark mafia or whatever would be like screeching to high heaven about what about, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure they would anyway. It's never stopped them. The time, God knows. But anyway, that has nothing to do. I don't want that to spoil this, but Alex Garland he's also kind of like not well known as far as I'm concerned, as far as like the normies. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but like I think that's going to change as time goes on, because clearly the dude has Jesus, holy shit, holy crap, the guy has like talent. And again, a writer. I mean, holy shit. I have to keep going back to the fact that he's a writer, and I'm gonna want to cuss. He understands what a story is, what the characters are. He understands that intimately, and you get this beautiful. And this was like one of his first movies, wasn't it? If not, director wise.
This is his directorial debut.
Exactly. But he nailed it. He friggin' nailed it. I think it's only going to grow as time as a classic.
In his previous movies, he worked with Danny Boyle, and Danny Boyle's crew is what he brought on with him with these movies. So the crew that was on 28 Days Later, and then in Sunshine and whatnot, those same people are with him with Ex Machina, Annihilation, and Men. So you've got that through line. You got your cinematographer, the same composers on all of those movies as well. There's a nice even the soundtrack. I always appreciate a soundtrack, but I'm not really a music guy, so I don't really pick out. I know Adam from Your Movie Sucks. He's a musician, so he's always commenting on the music and the beats of it. And then if a movie kind of steals some of the music, he immediately will point it out. But with this movie, even me being a dumb guy as far as music, I appreciated how the movie, the music was very symphonic, and then and also whenever Ava's on, the music was very childlike. And then by the end of it, it gets very distortioned and more electronic, and it's got the, I guess, kind of delving into it being less human, or there's that chaotic nature of, I guess, what's going on. I appreciated. And the music, they wanted the music Ava to be more childlike, so that she didn't seem sinister or threatening, in that sense, that there's a bit of the music gives her a bit of a charm, along with the actress's portrayal of the character. And then one other thing I wanted to talk about was the title of the movie. I didn't give it much thought, but when I was rewatching it, the title kind of played around in my mind, and it's The Machine. But so
In
you know,
Latin, right?
yeah, in Latin. So you're thinking, okay, Ava, the machine. But I had a different thought when I was watching it again. There's that the other Latin phrase, "dus ex machina," which
Mm,
is the God machine, which people will point that out with bad writing. So "dus ex machina" comes from back in the day when there were plays, and then when you got to the end of the play, if they couldn't resolve it, the writer couldn't really resolve it, they would have this kind of like this carriage come, or this little box come down and rescue the actors. You know, it's like, oh, well, just bring them out of it. So when a movie kind of does something that's kind of cheap or gimmicky, that rescues everybody at the end, they call it "Das Ex Machina."
right.
Whereas with this movie, they kind of play with that concept a little bit, in that uh, I got the sense, and I would love to ask Alex because I didn't see this in any of the interviews. Is Caleb the Deus Ex Machina? Because is he the device that Ava uses to rescue herself, or tries to use to rescue herself? But yeah, I really love the the idea, and I would love to ask Alex about that. Which I'm sure he probably has, especially since he wrote it in Latin for the title. I would think that he kind of triggering that concept.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to different cultures and history across the board. I'm going to get a little medieval here, a little historic, but in Roman plays, they had plays that of course that culture liked a certain kind of play and the structure there, and they liked a very clean cut, start to finish. It had the moral thing, it had this, whatever. And this is a little bit out of the box from that kind of concept, but kind of going in with what you were saying. They dropped the God part here because it has nothing to do with it. It's just mankind, and you have echoes of Adam and Eve. You have echoes of like a creation story. You have for very obvious reasons if you watch it through, and you should, because this is a good one to watch. But you have different things of like what you were saying, like who's the protagonist, who's the hero here. Is it Ava? Is it Caleb? You know, certainly not Nathan. But in a way, it could be Nathan too, because Nathan could be old man in a way, to kind of break it down a little bit more, meaning old man like the old style thinking, machine serve a purpose. You know, that like I program it, it does XYZ, and that's it. That's in the story. It's a toaster. It's always going to be a toaster. It always will be a toaster. Whereas Caleb is more like new man. So new man is like, well, maybe there's something more. Maybe this could be something greater than what it is, than the sum of its parts, like all human beings, like all things that are worth telling. From time immemorial to, you know, you had the Odyssey, and you had plays that were poems. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Good grief. Oh man. Anyway, but anyway, that's just my thought. I just leave it there. Like bigger,
Yep.
higher concept of like again. All these things that I'm saying are provocative, and they are a seed. Any good movie, any good book, a great book even, will plant a seed, and it will cause you to think about it will sprout in your mind, and you'll want more, or you'll want to know, you know, you just keep thinking about it and analyzing it or whatever. But that's the hallmark of a great friggin' movie.
Well, yeah, and then one of the ideas that it comes up with is like, yeah, if you get to the point, like with my laptop that I'm recording this on, if my laptop reached out to me and say, hey, don't shut me down,
Right.
do we have you're poised with the moral question, you know, have the right to shut it down? And it plays around with that idea as well, because obviously Ava wasn't the first generation of this
Part.
AI. So the movie gets into the, you know, what happened to the previous ones, and yeah, the moral question that's there. Whereas Yeah, and like you were saying, Nathan's more Neanderthal in that it's all Unitarian. So it's like these, once you get your new cell phone, you top out the old one, right?
Right.
So
It's not even for Nathan. It's not even black or white.
yeah.
That has nothing to do with it. It's not either. It is a machine or it isn't. No. It is a machine. That is his view, and that is all that it will ever be. And
Well, and
from
then
that, you kind of get you kind of, I don't want to get too
yep.
in thing, but
But
actually I get into it.
yeah, and then Nathan is also views humans that way as well.
No,
He's very
that's a great
yeah.
point. That's a great point. That's true. He is very much like he comes across you. You either serve his purpose or you don't. Period. Yeah, that plays into his worldview that you see as he goes on, and kind of invoking the Romans again. You do have, like, he is Caesar, so to speak, and I'll leave it there. And that should be more than enough to illuminate the audience to a spoiler as I can get without getting. Again, I don't want to get it. I want folks to kind of come into this and see it for themselves and whatever. But he is very much like on that fence of like, humanity is humanity. It's always been like this. It will always be like this. And yeah, okay, these things are here, and I actually created them. But because I created them, I'm the creator. He doesn't even go, and he doesn't even think about it. He sees the thing, and that it's a thing, and that's it. And boy, Caleb sees it kind of. I wouldn't say that Caleb sees it coming, because his belief system and his point of view is that of course it's possible. And not only that, but this machine it already passed the test. That it doesn't matter, like, whether this happened or that happened. It already establishes the fact that, like, we're in a new era. And it kind of goes from there, and I'll leave it there. We spent a lot of time on this one, and I hope we would, because, like, I really love this. I really love this movie.
Yeah, and it's one of the movies you don't want to let go of. It's like come back. Yeah, and it's a perfect timed movie. It's like an hour and 48 minutes. That's
Perfect.
And then it goes into more, and it does more than any Marvel movie, and those go to 2.5 to maybe 3 hours. And this, I could, you could fit 2 of these movies to a Marvel movie probably, and you'd get so much more out of it time and time again.
Yeah, they're not even on the same plane of existence. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy Marvel movies. I love them. I like to frolic in them. I have my favorites, back catalog favorites, like whatever that I like to revisit here and there. But there's no, like, when the dust all blows away and you're left with what is left. It's just like the ancient pyramids, right? So, like, the pyramids were there, and we're constantly learning about that. We're fascinated by it. How did these happen? But it's still there. Whereas, like, a Marvel movie is kind of like a wooden house. Like, after 50 years, it's gone, and it was never there. I mean, there might be concrete foundations, but that's about it. Like, it's not even in the same sky. It's not even the same universe. Like, like, it's just too. You're right. You're absolutely right. And I'm not saying that as a slight or negative on Marvel, because you know what you're getting with that. But this is a substantial movie, right, that has substantial concepts that don't leave you if you're open to it. I mean, sure, you could be bored and it's not for you, then you wouldn't watch it anyway. But if you give it the time of day, it's going to get in there, and it's going to keep going. Like, I'm telling you, man, it infected me. Like, I don't know how to put it, but I love it. I love this movie. I love it. Love it.
To do a food analogy, Marvel movies like popcorn. Everybody loves popcorn.
Right.
But this movie is more like a well-seasoned steak, I guess,
Yeah.
where you can
Right.
savor it and kind of think over
Exactly.
it, and kind of analyze the notes of of it, and like a fine chef would. But yeah, it's yeah, and it's like, again, it's whatever you like is whatever you like, and
Yeah, of
we're
course.
not cast any dispersion when we say Marvel movie. It's kind of tongue in cheek, sort of, kind of wink wink, because everybody
It,
knows it. It's a
right.
point of reference, basically. But yeah, and we love talking about this movie. Hopefully you've seen it. If not, definitely go out and see it. But yeah, use our comments as a sounding board. If you have your own thoughts about the movie, you can get as spoilery as you want in the comments, so the people that do watch it, haven't seen it, don't read the comments if we get any comments. But yeah, if you wanted to kind of bounce some ideas back and forth between us, we keep an eye on the comments. So
We do.
if you make
Please
a
comment.
comment, we'll definitely hit you back. And if we can get a pretty interesting conversation, we're such a small channel that if you want to get a little conversation going on in the comments, that's great. But if
Oh,
not, if you just like watching, hey, more power to you. But don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Still wanting to hit 42. I want the 42 subscribers, and then
I
we'll go
think
on from there.
I think so. Like, yeah, and the ratings for this, like, ignore like that. This is like what this means nothing. The 7 out of
Mhm.
10, whatever, means nothing.
Yeah.
What really is important is that the sticking power of it,
Yep.
and the fact that so understated.
Mhm.
This is one that is like, we're not quite at the decade mark for this, but within the
Mhm.
decade, 15 years or whatever, there's going to be like people are going to kind of come back to this and be like, oh man, what is that? Like when the Gen Z and all that
Mhm.
folks get older or whatever.
Yep.
But um, it's just a classic movie. Like, this one is good, and then the other one that I wanted it doesn't fit in this month, but maybe next month we can get into it, which is Her, which is
Mhm.
a Spike Jones joint,
Mhm.
like, which is it kind of sort of similar a little bit,
Mhm.
but it's not horror, and so it doesn't fit our month
Yeah.
here. But
Yep.
again, it's thought provoking. You can't go wrong with this, no matter how
Mhm.
you land on it.
Mhm.
It is not boring,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Yep.
It keeps you engaged. There is so many, it's like an onion with the layers. Anyway, we really should roll on to the next one, but anyway,
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
last words for this one?
No, it's just like you were saying about the number. I don't put numbers on movies. If you force me to, I would. But numbers mean nothing except for my underwear. I pay attention to the number size for my underwear, because that's
Right.
important. Numbers on movies, there's no importance.
Right on. Yeah, yeah. In my opinion, if I were to give this a rating, like, it's not in the sevens, it's in the nines.
Oh
It's,
yeah.
but that's my personal thing. Like, who cares about that? But anyway,
Yeah. Yep.
the audience will be well served anyway, we're all on to this. So this one had Natalie Portman,
Hmm.
and Annihilation. This
Hmm.
was like his third, I think it's his third film, something like that.
Hmm.
And I'll look here in a minute to confirm that, or correct it, whatever. But this one, I remember when it came out, I want to say that it came out exclusively on Netflix, but it didn't. I don't think that's true. But in any case, I didn't see it in the theater, but I did see it a little bit. I think I saw it 6 months after it came out, and then this was like the one that I rewatched, Ex Machina, Ex Machina. I had not, I had heard it and I had seen clips, but I
Hmm.
never watched it fully, like from start to finish,
Hmm.
until this past week.
Hmm.
But Annihilation I had seen
Hmm.
beforehand, just because I'm like, look, I'm not gonna lie. I grew up with Natalie Portman. Always had a crush on her. She's like amazing, whatever. Like, so whatever. Aside from that, like, so like, I wouldn't even if
So
it
you're
sucked, I
you're
would still.
you're yeah. You're like Annika. You're like, what would you call her? Annika's cover.
Go
Uh,
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I forget the line. Like, are you an angel?
Right. Oh God. Yeah. Well, and this and Natalie Portman's career goes back to Luke Besson.
The
And
professional. Yeah.
yeah, I think that was her. I think that
First,
was
yep.
her first movie. I
Yep.
think that was her first
Mm-hmm.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie is very interesting, and maybe we can get into it at some point, because we are you and I are both definitely cinephiles, and we've kind of bent the rule a little bit as far as the nerdom goes. But you know what? That's not like we really haven't, though, because there's nerdom around just about any movie.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's like bone stock, like Sex and the City kind of movie, like that's kind of a joke. But anyway, I digress. Like I love Natalie Portman. She's a great actress. Like the only ones that I haven't, I used to be like, if she ever came out in something, I would always kind of catch up on it. Up until about 5 or 6 years ago, like where it's just like I just don't have time. And I'm definitely a fan of hers, but
Yeah.
this one was a definite, it was very good, in my opinion. It was very good. I don't think it reaches the heights of Machina, but it stands on its own regardless. And it definitely plays on. This one is definitely more science fictiony than the other one, as far as like alien life goes, and like what the hell's going on, and like where are we at, like what the hell's going, like you're just kind of like left in the thing. And I'll kind of like leave it up to you to kind of like bring us in the intro. And hilariously, there's go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Annihilation. It's based on the book by Jeff VanderMeer. But basically, and then the book is part of a trilogy, which at the time when the movie was written and made, it the first book was the only one that had came out. The basic story is something hits a lighthouse. Is it a meteor? Is it a spacecraft? What is it? It starts this thing called the shimmer that starts to envelop and spread outwards. And anyone that goes into the shimmer doesn't come out. They've sent in a several different military crew in there. One of them being Natalie Portman's husband. And her husband, after being missing for a year, she has no idea about the shimmer. She has no idea what his mission was. He shows up and she's like, what's going on? And he has no answers. He goes into body failure and is being rushed to the hospital. The military and government comes in, captures both her and her husband, and they want to know what's going on in the shimmer. And they end up sending Natalie along with a crew of women into it. And there's and basically, before we get into like the meat of the movie, Alex Garland, so he was sent the book by one of his producers, saying you need to read this book. This is right at the end of them finishing up Ex Machina. So he read the book and he was like, I don't know if you how you would make this into a movie, because he said the way it's structured, it's not structured like a movie would be made. So he read the book, he let it simmer in his head, and then instead of going back and analyzing the book, piecing it together, used the the book as like a fever dream, and took that as a kind of an inspiration point, and then made his movie based off of his impressions of the book. So it's not a one-to-one movie adaptation. It's probably the best way to go, since Alex is a writer himself. And he said later on, after the movie was filmed and done, and Jeff had finished the book trilogy, he said it was kind of interesting how many of the concepts and ideas are paralleled. Now, I haven't read the books. I was tempted to read the books, but they got kind of lesser reviewed as opposed to the movie. So it was always kind of an idea of wanting to maybe read it to see what goes on. But and also the idea is the first book was the only thing was out, so when Alex did it, he did it as a singular movie without the idea of this is going to be, a trilogy film series. So that idea was not, so it was a finite idea for him. All it does end in a way that you're like, what's going on here? There, like everything else he does, he leaves you wanting more. And the
Very much
movies,
so. Yep.
yeah, the movie has a much more dark an oppressive kind of depressing kind of vibe to it as opposed to Ex Machina. So yeah, there's and also the one of the producers after the movie was finished, he was very nervous because the audience wasn't as keen on it, and he was pressuring Alex to make
Oh yeah.
make Natalie Portman's character much more likable and
Yeah.
to
Dumber.
change the yeah to change the ending as well. Whereas one of the other producers sided with Alex and
Then,
said no,
yeah.
we need to leave the movie as is, and that producer had final cut on it. So
Yep.
so yeah, it
And
is it
they
is
and
Alex's vision in the movie.
and they picked correctly. And I will say, did
Mhm,
you? I'll just ask, and this is live. We have not talked about this movie before this point.
mhm.
Did you not get aspects of a certain movie that we covered quite a few weeks ago, whatever, like that kind of
Yeah.
slides into it? It's like literally the
Yep.
same thing.
Yep.
With
Stalker.
the
Yeah.
like
Stalker.
Stalker. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Good. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally got Stalker vibes from this, but in
Mhm.
in in a good way. In a good way. Not like in a cheap. It's just a copy and paste or whatever. Like in a very fulfilling, its own journey, its own way. And I wish. Well, I don't know. The novel, or was there a novel, or was it just written by Jeff
This.
VanderMeer? And that was it. That wasn't
Oh,
published like an actual book.
it is. Yeah, it is a novel.
Oh,
It's
okay, okay.
published
I'll
and
I'll
out
have to
there.
check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's a trilogy.
Right.
So
I
there's two
understand.
other books as well. Uh-huh. Yeah, and yeah, the got stock vibes, and also the H.P. Lovecraft story Color Out of Space. There's
Oh,
a lot of vibes of that, and then there's also a recently been done a Nicolas Cage adaptation to Color Out of Space as well. Um, but yeah, there's a it's about an alien that kind of crashes and kind of manipulates the reality of that world. So, and what I
that's
really,
funny.
yeah,
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, like real quick, but
uh,
like we kind of covered like two or three examples of this, and
mhm,
using Robert A. Heinlein, which is my all-time favorite sci-fi author. He's a
mhm,
master. His novel "Stranger in a Strange Land" is not far from that. Anyway, go on. Sorry,
mhm.
I just had to add that.
Yeah, yeah. There's one of the things with our channel I didn't realize a lot of stuff that we like has echoes or is inspired by the same sources, and then there's like certain movies that keep or stories or novels that keep um has a ripple effect between the movies, like Stalker has kind of inspired, like, say, this movie, as well as
Mhm.
some other ones that we've talked about, as and then that there's a web of things that kind of tie a lot of this stuff together, which kind of makes sense. Good stuff inspires good stuff. So uh,
Absolutely.
but yeah, this is one of those movies that makes my skin crawl.
Does it really? Really?
Yeah, yeah.
How so? How so?
Just the whole thing. When they go into the shimmer, um, they start seeing things that are manipulated, like the flowers. There's various flowers growing from the same source, which that shouldn't be on the same vine, that shouldn't be happening. So there's all these mutations, and that whole kind of body horror thing where the body's changing,
Oh
just
yeah,
kind of makes my skin crawl. And then there's like all
yeah.
these everything. There's like a lot of things where it looks like things are rotting, but they're rotting in bright colors. One of the things I loved about this movie, it's sort of like shooting a horror movie in broad daylight. Most horror movies are shot dark,
Right,
and
right.
just because that puts you in that mindset. Whereas if you're shooting during the day, you really have to work to get that sense of evil or impending doom. Whereas in this movie,
Right.
uh,
And
it's
and shout out to our upcoming show. That is very true in the original Hellraiser. For that, but that's a teaser to our show in a little bit. Anyway, go on. Sorry,
okay.
had to call out.
Yeah. Yes. So this movie, like I said, it's very depressing, but it's very brightly colored. There's like a kaleidoscope of colors. Whereas those, I don't know, it gives sense of the world being infected by a cancer or something. With it being very brightly colored is very, very offsetting. Whereas normally bright colors kind of bring sort of a kind of vibrance, a rainbow. You kind of see a rainbow and you get happy, but in this movie it starts to creep you out when you see and the shimmer has that sort of rainbow effect. And one of the things that the VFX guys talk about is they really tried working that in subtly, very, very prominently to start with the movie, because before they enter the shimmer, it looks like this big dome of kind of rainbow effect to it.
Right.
And but once you get into the shimmer, they wanted to kind of subdue it a little bit, because you're getting accustomed to it, like the characters, they're getting used to the look of things, so it kind of kind of dims back out, to the point where, like in one scene, it was just showing there's a cracked window behind the characters, and they kind of
Correct.
manipulate the cracks so that you can see that in that,
And, and
where normally you wouldn't probably see it, but your subconscious kind of sees it.
and I wanted to grab on the rainbow concept that you just mentioned,
Mhm.
because I feel like, and I have no proof of this, but I feel like, okay, if you go back to very very old classic storylines, there is one that talks about, at the end of the story there's a rainbow, and the rainbow is a promise,
Mhm.
to from the eternal to mankind, that certain things would not happen again. And expanding upon that, like, essentially, if you distill down a rainbow, it is a promise. So it was interesting to see that, what you were just saying, that rainbow as a promise, and have it be not what it is. I mean, kind of, sort of, like,
Mhm.
we can go back and forth on this or whatever, but, like, yes, it is a promise, but it is not like what you think it is. And I'll
Mhm.
leave it there. Sorry. I just wanted to add that depth there to the rainbow analogy, whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. The movie's visually very breathtaking. There's various scenes. Like it starts off slowly. Um, in the infection, has a source. Like I said, whatever thing hit this lighthouse and it spread outward. So as and
Right. This
they're
is the bottom
focused,
of
and
the lighthouse. Right.
yeah, and they know it hit the lighthouse, so their goal is to get to the lighthouse. But as you go into the shimmer and get closer to the lighthouse, that infection, that cancer of whatever it is that's spreading out, you get more towards the source, so things get manipulated. So as the acts go on in the movie, things get a lot weirder and weirder and weirder as you go on. And
Yep.
there's sort of like that cosmic horror of
Yep.
H.P. Lovecraft that's very
That's
much in
true.
the forefront.
But
So
it's bright and colorful and
right.
whatnot. That good call out. Good
Mhm.
point. Good point.
Yeah. Yeah. So even though Alex Garland, he plays into things that have come from the past and ideas, and kind of plays to those strengths. Does also like to manipulate things and kind of turn them into give a little interesting twist here and there. And there's one scene where they come upon all these things that look like humans, but they're plants. They're plants, the flowers and whatnot. And the Alex Garland said that at that point he was inspired by yeah, that picture right there. He was inspired by Swamp Thing, the old DC book by Alan Moore. He's very much into old 80s comic book. He goes, yeah, I know that's kind of a niche area, but but hey, and I was like, hey, that's my wheelhouse. So but yeah, he was very influenced by Swamp Thing, so by Alan Moore. So that's maybe a little bit of a tribute. And also that whole section right there with those plants and whatnot, very reminiscent. I don't know if you played the game, but The Last of Us. I don't know if you've played that game.
I played that. I did. Like that was PlayStation 3 era, right? Yeah, no, I did. I did. I did not enjoy anything beyond that game as far as it goes for anything else, but that's a whole other story. But
right.
Hey,
they've got the HBO TV series coming out soon, but anyway, but but yeah, and also yeah, and at points there's sort of like kind of guitar sounds to the soundtrack, and that was very reminiscent of The Last of Us 2. So I don't know how much that was intentional or unintentional, if they were kind of inspired by that. But yeah, that whole look, which is a good look. I mean, and also since everything's being affected, the shimmers affecting everything in it, including the plant life and the creatures,
everything.
And the creatures in Last of Us is plant based. Yeah, there's sort of like the same DNA, so to speak, for both. There's a scene early on. Synergy, yeah. There's a scene early on when the five women five women, they're about to enter the shimmer, and there's a back shot of them. I used it for our thumbnail. It made me they're all geared up in their brown suits, their backpacks, their guns. For some reason it inspired thoughts of Ghostbusters, maybe the the reboot from 2016. And this movie was made in 2018, so I don't know, it was sort of a dig on that movie or unintentionally inspired, but it's sort of like it to me it felt like, okay, this is how you do a female centric action movie.
That's so funny you say. I'm not gonna lie, I had echoes of, I didn't have that direct thought, but like I was like, oh, like no, but anyway, at the end of the day, like this is how you do it.
Yep.
That 2016 Ghostbusters, how you don't do it or whatever. Like and I'm speaking from the standpoint of like I enjoyed that movie limitedly from my kiddos' perspective. But it doesn't have the same gravitas as, but it doesn't matter. That's a whole other thing. You're right. You're 100% on point with that, my friend. You are.
Yeah. And so this had double the budget of Ex Machina, which it shows. And whereas Ex Machina was almost completely void of action, this movie is very much an action movie in that there's very, very big, like that picture right there. It's very Ghostbustery looking.
Right.
With the color grading and everything. I don't know if it was intentional or not. But yeah, the way they handled the characters in this movie, it is definitely of that era 2018 where they were coming out with all those yes queen female centric action movies. But this this is handled by a writer, so both the writer of the book and the writer of the movie they're going to treat them like humans, and
Right. Like
not action superheroes. So
the message, so to speak. Right.
right, yeah. These every single one of them is a fundamentally flawed character.
Oh yeah.
Where at the time they're all trying to uplift women, so this was not the movie that they were going to promote and say, hey, this is all about women, because even though it's very very human movie and it examines the relationship between men and women, it's very very important that it's the women that come in to the Shimmer at this point, because there'd always been male people going in, and towards the end you realize that it was kind of it was very important for women to come in, and maybe the Shimmer was waiting for women to enter the Shimmer for this very purpose. But yeah, it's
Again, it leaves to the audience to be, to figure it out. Again,
yeah.
because it fundamentally trusts the audience to be smart and intelligent and not have direct exposition that tells you what's going on when you already know what's going on, like, and treat you like you're a friggin' 2-year-old or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
That's the difference between a mature movie and a movie that doesn't get it. And this is a mature movie. Like, this is another why I love this. Again, I don't rate it as high as Ex Machina, but it's a different movie. It's a different movie completely. But it tackles a lot of the excuse me, what's his name? Tarkovsky films, and also the Wachowskis, the Matrix, and a little bit like I invoke Blade Runner, but this is no different. Like, this kind of like it still leaves you with a fundamental, like, what's going on, and like that's the beautiful discussion that we're having. Anyway, sorry, I just had to call that out. Like that, I cannot help but say, and this is contrasted with our grab bag, like, which is a little, and I'm not going to get on a soapbox here, but I will say that, like, again, you have to treat the audience as if they're smart and intelligent, and they will figure out the rest. Again, this calls back to like what you were talking about, that situation, like where the studio wanted to take it in a more dumb, more action-oriented direction, and the producers were like, no, like Scott Rudin or whatever decided with Garland, and I get that from the thing that I was reading there from the IMDb. But regardless, they went with trusting the director, and it paid off. It might not pay off like a blockbuster, but I think this movie did all right. But
it was considered a flop. Basically, well, I think it's close, because I think it costs like $45 to $50 million to make, and it only made $40 million in the box office. But the thing is, it was released in America in the theaters, but then they got cold feet, and overseas they shuttled it off, sold it. No, they didn't even release it in the theaters. They sold it off to Netflix. They sold it to Netflix.
That's where I come in, like, because I remember I remember when I saw and heard about it, it was exclusively for Netflix. So that explains my experience. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Well, international Netflix, but yeah. So as opposed, right, yeah. So with the Ex Machina, it only took 15 million to make and made 35 million. So even though Ex Machina made less than Annihilation, it's considered a success, actually, because it made much more of its budget. And that's one of the reasons why I love horror movies, in that it's most of the time they're cheaper to make, so you can take much more risk as far as making a more intelligent, interesting story, without worrying about how much money you're going to make. Because Annihilation is a wonderful movie. I love the ideas to it. It's very dark. It does treat the audience like grown-ups. It's okay, we're going to tell you a grown-up story.
Right.
Buckle in, Bucko. But that doesn't draw all of the popcorn eaters that come to a Marvel movie.
Right.
Unfortunately.
And I think this comes in for both Ex Machina and this one and Annihilation, and that the box office, and this is the exception to the rule, the box office does not dictate whether it's truly a good movie or not. Blade Runner came in, and it was by all measures, it was a flop. It was not well received. It only grew in stature. Again, these are the truly great movies that, like, maybe the box office doesn't reflect that, and sometimes it does. Most times it does, probably, but that is not the sole indicator of whether this is like really good quality or not. Again, kind of goes back to like what you were saying with like Ghostbusters. Like, the only time anybody has invoked Ghostbusters 2016 is from a negative side. It's not from the comedic talent. It's not from the plot. It's not from the character development. It's not from the director's prowess or the screenplay prowess. It's none of those. It is known as a far more flop from a catastrophe from that standpoint. Whereas this and Ex Machina, I don't care about the box office numbers. Like, it will grow over time because it attracts that cult following, that thing. It has that it factor that fact of the matter is, what, 2018, 2019, whatever was came out, like, we're talking about 2018, excuse me. But like, it just goes to show like that. Anyway, sorry. I just want to I want to get on the soapbox, and I want to say, this is if you want to see a movie, go see this movie. You will be entertained. You will be challenged a little bit. Sorry.
No, a lot of the movies that we like you said, we know and love are movies that probably that weren't successful initially, like you said, Blade Runner. And then even though Tron was successful, it wasn't as big a success as Disney wanted. But it has legs. I mean, one of our most popular episodes on our channel is our Tron episode, and that kind of just shows you there's still that interest in it. And then notoriously, The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, really flopped at the box office, made very little money, and it's considered a classic horror movie now. Everybody loves it. One of the funnier stories, I think it was Guillermo del Toro that said it. Maybe it was a different director, but he no, I think it was the director, Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright. He went to John Carpenter and said, "Oh, I love this movie. It's a classic. I absolutely love this movie." And John Carpenter's like, "It didn't make any money for me." Very pragmatic, very pragmatic guy, and John Carpenter.
No, absolutely, no. And to your point, like what we were saying, like, Tron, and both of us were like, "Oh, we'll cover Tron as like our thing," and then like we were both pleasantly surprised at the rise. So I hope this is an indicator that we are on the rise too. But in any case, the thing is that, and this is what I think that the need or the purpose that we fulfill, so to speak. And we are nobodies. Don't get me wrong. Like, we have no ego in any of this. But the thing is that audiences and people generally are hungry. They're always hungry for great stories, great movies, and they will find them. Maybe they won't find them this year. Maybe they won't find them next year. But over time, again, this all goes back to from the time when we were babies or whatever, like when we couldn't even see movies. Like, movies grow. They build a following. Like, they're an experience. And when you can go and see that movie, even better in the theater live, that's the penultimate experience that you could ever ask for. But when you have that experience, it leaves you again. It doesn't dumb it down. It doesn't treat you as if you were dumb. It doesn't try to blunt you over the head with some kind of thing other than like whatever. They put it out just like any since mankind has ever existed, it's art, right? So if it's art, they create it and they put it out, and you have the corrupting effects of money and all this and other whatever, like that perverts art or whatever. I won't get into that, but at the end of the day, you are left with a creation that you love, or you don't, maybe you hate it, maybe you don't know how you feel about it, but at the end of the day, like that's the point. The point is to provoke thought of this creation, and how do you feel about it? How does it impact you? What do you think about it? I wish, and I say this, and I don't think that it's true. I don't think like that. It's always been the same as it ever has been, which is like back in the day, like Blade Runner. Nobody gave that the time of day when it came out. They didn't. Like if you go by the box office,
I did.
Well, of course you did. But again, as time has gone on,
yeah,
we go back, and what are we talking about? We're talking about Blade Runner. We're talking about the offshoots of that, etc. We're not talking about whatever, like and there is a place for, and then the world is big enough for Disney, Marvel, and for popcorn action movies, because I love them too, like Die Hard or whatever. You have that classic thing of like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie or is it an action movie? Whatever, blah blah blah. The point is that you're talking about it decades later. You're talking about this is no different. I would argue that Ex Machina has more staying power than Annihilation, but the truth is, in my heart, Annihilation has the same staying power of like, what the hell is this? You have the shimmering. And I didn't even think about that, about the whole aspect of like, maybe it is waiting for females. Maybe it is waiting for that next trigger point for it to take over the world or whatever the hell it's going to do. Like that's well, again, this all goes back to like talking about it and keeping it alive.
yeah. Not to not to spoil things, but there's it goes back like Ex Machina to Adam and Eve. I'll just leave it there. There's a very Adam and Eve moment at the end of the movie, and very very striking. Like that picture right there, that just looks like a cross. And why is there why does that invoke a cross in me? And that's one of those things that is fun with this movie, is like, okay, what is it that Alex Garland is trying? It's a game that you're playing with the writer and the director of the movie. It's like, what is he trying to tell me? What am I pulling away from it? What am I reading into it? And what I'm reading into it is just as important to me as is what Alex Garland is saying. And those are the directors and writers that I love, like David Lynch. There's certain storytellers that there's just as much of a game to it as there is, very very interactive, so to speak. So when they say movies are more passive, video games are active, it's like, no, certain movies can be interactive, very much so. It depends on how much you want to invest into it.
I will double down, triple down, quadruple down, quintuple down, and that's about, well, sextuple down. I think that's about the limit of my Latin goes for that. But you're right. Really good movies pull you in. They pull you in just like a good video game does. And then God knows we're few and far short for that too. But again, it's all entertainment. But this will take the classic tropes, and you'd be like, oh, I know that trope. Ooh, or tvtropes.com, or whatever the hell it is. Like, but the thing is that like they take that, but they reuse it, and it's just like the same thing as like Shakespeare and Macbeth and Sons of Anarchy, and like that's just Macbeth, or excuse me, Hamlet. That's just Hamlet writ large on a more modern screen. There's a reason why those things propagate and they are successful. The same thing, like the creation of myth. There's Adam and Eve. There's like the and also of note, I would say this. Granted, it's just a screenshot that randomly pulled off of IMDb on their website. That's our base website. But like the other thing is like it's
based.
Well,
Yeah.
like the fact that you would point that out is legitimate as anything else because again, this is a movie. Alex Garland. I love Alex Garland because he trusts me to figure it out. You know, he doesn't dumb me down with like what he wants me to see or the message or anything like that. You can draw any conclusions that you want from it. And the fact that the kind of doubling down on what you were saying, or tripling down rather, like it's during daylight. It could be sunset, sunrise, who knows, whatever. I don't know. Like that's a little bit too far in the weeds. But the fact is just that like we would spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or even 30 seconds talking about this one scene and just the picture from the show. Like again, that just goes back to the hallmark of a good movie. A great movie, I would argue.
Right.
And you are invited in to pick your own, figure it out. You know, I love that. Like that never gets old. I wish Hollywood would. It is what it is. Anyway, sorry.
Well, and he knows to invest you into the characters, like you said. Like you're leaning into this movie, you're getting pulled in. But he could do action and horror very well. I just have to say the bear scene and the alligator scene. Those are very much highlight of the alligators. Way more of like an action scene. The bear scene is very much a horror movie scene, and it plays it to the nth degree. It's far more engaging. Those two scenes are far more engaging in that you know the characters that are involved in this, and you're much more invested in the characters, and you care about what happens to them, to the extent to where it's not just an action scene to watch. It's you're there with those characters. Wow, those are interesting screen grabs. But yeah, so I thought you might linger on them with your infatuation, Natalie.
No, a little bit more mature than that.
But yeah. So like I said, Alex treats you like an adult. He doesn't get on his soapbox,
Nope.
like we tend to do on our grab bag. But yeah, any message that he wants to relay to you is buried within the text. It's multi-purpose. You there's things that he cares about deeply that are invested into the movies. But they're not pointed. They're more archetypal. They're more, you could read what you want into them. You could pull away what you want from them. He's not telling you how to think. He's not telling you how to vote. He's not telling you anything except a great story that you could pull what you want from. And I'm glad that we were able to maybe double down or triple down on Alex. Alex has been with me at this point most of my life. I read his first book, The Beach, back when it came out in the early 90s.
And to kind of preface this, like this was a very big pivotal thing for you, right?
Yeah. It's actually the interesting thing about The Beach is it's kind of a journey for the character in it. It was kind of a journey for me because I was in a tumultuous relationship at the time with a manic depressive woman, and at the start of the book I was with her, and by the time I finished with it we were broken up. So it was, for whatever reason that's kind of interlocked in my head with that book. So yes,
hey man,
the
I'm right there with you with my own experiences for sure. Like we'll talk about that offline, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So The Beach was kind of my salvation at the time with reading it, because I was going through some traumatic things as the character was in that book. So that book and the movie that eventually came out by Danny McBoyle or Boyle that adapted it, and then and so like Alex, ever since that I've kind of followed him. He did write another book, the Tesseract, which I didn't read, but I don't know why I didn't read it. I'm not sure why that fell to the wayside. I'll probably go back and invest into it.
We might have to put that off to the side to like review it for sure.
Yeah. And then one of the things that in the South by Southwest interview or panel that they did, one of the guys asked him from the audience, why don't you write books anymore? And he said, well, I consider myself a writer first and foremost. And
so humble.
yeah, and yeah, and he goes, and he said that, you know, he wrote the books because that was how he could convey his stories at the time. Now that he's able to do movies, that's as long as they allow him to make movies, he's going to make movies. He said, because he enjoys that, because writing a book is a very singular experience, and doing movies is a more collaborative experience. And and like you said he was humble, and that's echoed in sort of what the actors say, like Tessa from Annihilation. She plays one of the characters. She said that they say, say, I love your movies. She told him, and he goes, not my movies. They're everybody that worked on the movie is their movie. It is not just my movie. And he also said that in South by Southwest. He said that one of the things that is great about being able to write and direct movies is that he gets to write and direct movies. But the bad thing is when they comment on it, they talk about it as his movies, where it's not really his movie. It's much more collaborative experience, and he hates that those people that contributed to it and added things that he was not even involved with, and then he gets the credit for it. He said, that's kind of a bad thing about it, which is, I guess, a very humble way of looking at it. And I think a lot of Japanese creators of writer directors have that same mindset, whereas I think it's a very good mindset to have. It doesn't let you get full of yourself. I think a lot of some of my favorite writers directors have fallen off in later years. I think just because they're smelling to be a little blue, they're smelling their own farts. So yeah, I think we could probably point towards Kevin Smith. I don't know.
and many others, but we won't.
Right. And and that's, again, that's a very human thing to do. I mean, if you're if you're constantly being praised, it's very easy to fall into that. Oh yeah, I do pretty good things.
Well, and to double down on your point, and triple down and quadruple down, and quintuple and sextuple and whatever like that. That's my Latin is done. But all joking aside, a unique watcher out there who's multilingual would understand what I'm saying. But anyway, all jokes aside, that is the point of where and why manga is absolutely eating the lunch, eating Americans' comic book lunch, because manga is far and away, like it has been for a long time, eating our, like there is just no comparison between American comic book sales and manga. Like in specifically not just manga in Japan, but manga in America. Like that is exactly why those storylines are where people flock to, because people, I don't know what it is. This is a broader discussion that maybe we could do a show on, whatever, and we definitely touch on it in our grab bag. But the fact is that like what you just said is perfectly distilled down to it is they take their ego, and it's not about them, it's about the story, it's about the art, It's about pushing it forward. And there's a reason why that is forefront and more attractive to more readers, etc. as we go forward. Like, whereas like American comics are like more of like, we're in it. I don't know how to describe it. We're in a transition or something or whatever. Like, it's just not as engaging. It's funny that you say that. Anyway, I just wanted to call that out. So, like, sorry, I just had to pontificate.
Right, and then there's a lot more of Alex Garland to invest in. There's we haven't mentioned it yet, but there's his a limited series TV show on FX called Devs. Did you ever see that?
Say it again. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Yeah, there's the limited series on FX called Devs.
I have not seen that. No.
All right. Yeah, that's that's an 8-episode series. Tells a complete story. Stars that guy from not Community, but Parks and Recs, the meme guy, the guy that likes meat. That I forget his name. But yeah, he plays another kind of Steve Jobs type character, and it kind of gets into quantum time, and it's very much very interesting, very Alex Garland kind of show. I know he wrote all the episodes. I'm pretty sure he directed all of them. He might not have. But yeah, that's a great show. He also speaking of video games and interactiveness, he did write a video game called Enslaved. I have not played it. It's just for PS3. It hasn't been ported over. So yeah, I might have to dig out my PS3 to play that game. But yeah, he said that but his next movie, he's writing and directing it. But from interviews, he said this will be his last. After this next movie, he's going to go back to just screenwriting. So I'm not sure why that is, but yeah, maybe he got all the directing bug out of his system, and he wants to focus again back on writing. Because I'm pretty sure that directing takes a lot out of you.
I can imagine that. And the fact that Alex Garland would have such a solid grip on reality, and he's so, pardon me, very fucking humble. The fact that he would say what he said about being a writer versus director or whatever, just again, I will tell you this. I will promise you this much. So long as me and Thomas do this thing, and as there is a next Alex Garland film, and just the same thing as a Denis Villeneuve film as well, because he gets it. Alex Garland definitely gets it for sure. We will for sure be covering that aspect for sure. Like, I just can't say, like, when you find a good thing, and like this is the typical thing of like, okay, so like we covered the A24 stuff last week, whatever. We had a little taste of Alex, whatever. And when I was talking to you about the next set of things to do, we were not wrong. You cannot go wrong. You just can't. And maybe you don't like this one. Well, I'll tell you what. Dial up any kind of Alex Garland film, and you will be satisfied. Absolutely, friggin' for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and before we leave Annihilation and wrap this up, I will say one more thing. And this is maybe the first and only good thing I'll say about Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi.
Go.
They were this was filmed in Pinewood Studios. For the most part, is filmed in England, which is supposed to be in the southern swamplands. So they did a very convincing job again for filming. But since they were filming in Pinewood in 2018 or 2017, 2018, another smaller movie was being filmed at the same time, The Last Jedi. So and the thing that connects the two movies is Oscar Isaacs, and so they he wasn't sure he was going to be able to make Annihilation with Alex, and he loves Alex. He really wanted to do it. They were able to ask Rian Johnson and the Star Wars team if he could also, run across the studios and do some scenes on Annihilation. And Ryan, in his infinite wisdom, said, "Yes, you could do it." so, so
I'll
that's
say this.
mhm.
I'll say this. I don't know where that rates, but like I'll remember that. As far as like directors and names go, whatever, because like you give a little bit more. Well, I'm typical, right? So like the people you like to see on screen, you give a little bit more, leeway than not. So that in a small way that goes to me. Well, I don't want to go into it, but anyway, there's just too much there to unpack to run. What the point is that we're covering Annihilation and Alex Garland and his friggin' genius on Ex Machina and Annihilation. I don't want to take away from that. So go on.
Yeah. No, but it said it was kind of interesting because anytime that Oscar Isaac got a chance to.
I get it.
Anytime Oscar got a chance to run over to Annihilation, he took it. So they said a lot of times, they would be shooting or doing something, and there's Oscar off to the side in his Star Wars outfit, watching what's going on. But yeah, they said
could have been so much more.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I know. But yeah, and Oscar's such a great actor that Alex said that he really knows how to dial it in, much like the actor we found in Men, who can isn't a method actor that can turn it off and on. Oscar evidently is the same way, because he said that when they were doing a scene in Annihilation, it'd be Oscar talking, and then he goes, "Okay, well, do you want me to do it kind of like this?" And he would just automatically click over to his character, and he acts it out in a certain way. And then right afterwards, he goes, as Oscar, he goes, "Hey, how was that?" He goes, or I could do it like this. I could do it like this. And then he clicks back over into the character and gives a whole different take on that same scene as that character. And he said that it's amazing that he could do that. And I don't know what movie I saw of Oscar. Maybe it was Ex Machina, but I fell in love with him as an actor, and I've seen almost anything by him. Each of his performances is very, very unique and very different. Even though we're giving a bunch of love to Alex Garland, I have to give a lot of love to Oscar. Even though he's not really much in Annihilation, this is more of a Natalie Portman joint. But yeah, he's no matter how little he's in a movie, he gives it his all. And that's why I knew in Moon Knight, the fact that he was playing 2 or 3 different personalities, that he could pull that off, even though it turned out to be more of a comedic kind of thing. But I knew he could create within the same character multiple personalities, because that's just how good he is. Whereas if you had someone like, say, Johnson in the same role, or Ryan Reynolds in the same role, it might not turn out as well. Not to say too much about Ryan Reynolds, but he seems to be more or less a playing himself, so to speak, maybe hyped up a little bit more, but yeah.
No, indeed, yeah. I wish Ian Johnson, he knows a thing or two, but
Yeah,
it is what it is. But
yeah.
no, indeed. No, this one was like where, and we didn't cover too many spoilers, and we won't. But
Mhm.
this one is the same thing. It leaves you with like, did it happen or did it not happen? I'll leave it there. But as far as like Natalie Portman is the key character, and I think we kind of covered. Well, I showed the screenshot of the potential switch or whatever you want to call it. There
Yep.
with the shimmer. But
yeah,
man, I love this stuff because we cover like what is truly good to watch, and what you should watch, even if you don't like it. Like, it's not going to land you in the same valley that, like, something like a major picture would, like, either this side or this side. It has nothing to do with that. Like that's why I love these shows, because like there are movies rather than anything else, because like, again, this 6.8 reading, that's bullshit. This is solidly going with my rating of like putting Ex Machina up to like 9 something or whatever. This is like on the almost 9, upper 8s. Like this 6.8 thing, I forget that. Like, but the whole point is that you should watch it and figure it out for yourself. Like that's the nobody got on Twitter and rallied against whoever for this movie. Granted, it was still in the same era of like Twitter and like and the backlash of like, you said something bad and you should be, whatever. But yeah, you should go and check out this movie just the same as Ex Machina, and I promise you, whether you watch one or the other, you will not be disappointed. If you are curious about, like, if you want to see something you're not used to, and be like, oh, what happened? Like, is it the clone or is that the original? I'll leave it there. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And don't think we're being victims of the whole thing of smelling our own farts. We don't we don't just love well written, well done movies, highfalutin movies, maybe, so to speak.
Right.
We also love trash. There's trash out there that we love. I know I love, you love. We're all inclusive in our love.
No,
So
and look, not everything has to be like amazing. To my to my standards of like what a truly great movie is or whatever. It could be, like, I fully admit I love certain movies that like just don't get as much play. Like I love Battle LA. Honestly, like kind of like letting the Komodo down a little bit, or opening it rather, or the curtain, or whatever analogy you want to say. Like I love Battle Los Angeles. That's Aaron Eckhart. It is it is a trash sci-fi action whatever movie, but I love that. I love watching it every year, and every year I do. I love that movie. But at the same time, there are these movies that stick with you that are just great.
Like you said, that kind of stand the test of time. And there's certain movies that stand the test of time on their merits, which we believe that Alex is that. Some stand the test of time by their flaws. Ed Wood, his Plan 9 from Outer Space is notoriously a bad movie that's going to live throughout time, I'm pretty sure, just because it is what it is, and people love it. There's things that stand the test of time have elements to them that again are universal, will pull you in no matter how old you are, that just there's sort of they call it the kismet. There's just something that kind of coalesces and draws people to it. There's just some charm to it, that just really engages the viewer. And sometimes they're buried away. There's constantly that vinegar syndrome. They dug up the the New York Ninja that we spotlighted a while back. That's an instant classic that almost never got seen beyond a handful of people. And that one I will stand the test of time just on how wonderful how wonderfully bad but good that movie
That
is.
that one is just awesome, no matter how you cut it.
Yeah. So I think we're wrapping it up here. Again, hopefully we gave you something to chew on in this. We definitely uh putting our own take and spin on things, and hopefully we added enough to it to kind of entice you. And a shout out to Lou. He I noticed he commented on a couple of our videos previously, saying that we're doing a good job and he sees an improvement. He's on I think he's on vacation this right now, so he said he was going to try to catch up on some of them. So shout out to Lou and little Lou there. That's the big Godzilla fan. But yeah, he said that he really enjoyed that podcast of ours. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
mhm.
well, and that goes out. It's a heartfelt thank you to me, and Thomas is the same. I know I can speak for him on that, and he's right here, so he can say his own thing. But
Yeah.
the fact that you would even take the time and watch 3 minutes or 30 minutes or the whole thing, we are very grateful. And we just want to find good entertainment. We don't want to just complain and gripe about what. Sure, there's fun in that too, and we do that a little bit on our other shows and whatnot. But at the end of the day, what are you watching? What applies to you? What really inspires you? And not to be too cliche, but again, good art will always inspire you to think beyond the original concept that you saw.
Mhm.
And that's true throughout, whether you see a painting or you hear music or you see a film or a show or whatever, or you read a book. Um, these are things I think that are really important in our state of society today, wherein there's so many things pulling your attention here or there. And if we could just be a voice, a small, tiny voice in your ear,
Mhm.
to say, hey, watch this. We are definitely we are definitely grateful, and we welcome that, whether you like it or not. We hope to build a good community, a good following, to find that, not just to
Mhm.
complain about what's wrong today or whatever. And that's fine. You're always going to find that in the moment, whether it's today or 6 months from now or 6 years from now. You're always going to be finding critics that find things to hate on or not like or pick apart or whatever. But at the same
Mhm.
time, what the inverse question is, what is out there that you should enjoy and like, or you could like, you could fall in love with? And this whole thing kicked off. I'm going to go a little preamble here for our year, when we have our year anniversary here. But one of the things that kicked this off for me and inspired me to reach out to Thomas and to try to find folks that felt the same way as I do. Like, we want to talk about things, we want to expand upon them, we want an audience, we want this, we want that. Was Dune. Dune blew my socks off as far as like jaded. I've seen it all. I've read it all. I've whatever. And then all of a sudden,
Mhm.
Dune came along, and it impacted you and in its own way to you as well. At the end of the day, it's not about Dune per se. It's just about those things, those movies, those stories, those novels, those concepts that really impact you beyond just watching it. And the thing is that you have to watch it. So please be our guest and watch one of these two, and you will not be disappointed. I promise you,
Mhm.
for sure. Among
Yep.
our vast back catalog of up to a year going,
Mhm.
we covered the silly, we covered novels, we covered this, we covered that. But like,
Mhm.
we are true fans at heart, and we want to find things that people can rally around and love and enjoy and partake in, that might not be maybe a little bit off the beaten path. And I have definitely learned a new, for me personally speaking, for horror. I honestly thought horror was just like Freddy Krueger and Jason and hacker slash whatever. No. I found a genre that was so much more than its parts, and it dips into the really good genres. Dip into sci-fi, they dip into action, they dip into drama, thriller, whatever you want to call the psychosphere, like what I love. That's my favorite. Like whatever it is, you will find your home in one of these things, hopefully, that we humbly bring to you. So absolutely, please. Please
And,
like, subscribe, comment, and I'll let Thomas have the last word.
Yeah, and just to expand upon that just a little bit more. One of the things Mike's always talking about how how vast my repertoire is as far as what I like, and obscure stuff that I like. It's because
you are a scholar and a gentleman, and I have learned from you so much from this year. You have no idea, but I just want to give that compliment out.
Yeah. And again, I'm not tooting my horn on this, but just the fact that I always go towards things with an open mind.
Indeed.
If you go, there's a lot of negativity right now, very much a negativity towards various products, various things. People come in with preconceptions. Oh well, this movie's gonna do this movie's gonna do that, whereas I've never been that way. I'll say, okay, I don't, that doesn't look like something I would like, but then I would look at what people are saying about it, and that had actually seen it, not impressions of it. And if people say, oh, it's good, or start pointing things out that intrigues me, I'll go into something. I'll even watch something that I don't think I might not like it. I was like, okay, I might not like this, but there's something that's pulling me to it. I'll watch it. And you have to go to things with the open mind. You might turn out that, okay, yeah, it was a piece of crap, whatever. And then that also depends on how much leisure time you have. As we get older, we have far less of that. So yeah, I understand if you don't want to give things a chance, but if you have that time, if you can go to it open-mindedly, you may be surprised that you find something that you love that you never thought you would, and that opens up things within your mind that you wouldn't have known previously. So it's always worth a venture in. You may not like, you may have to step back out of it, but that's joy of it. That's how I got into horror. I was always intrigued. I thought, well, I won't like that because I don't like being scared. But I read a book of short stories by Stephen King, Night Shift, because someone recommended one of the stories for me to do in speech class to read, and that intrigued me even more, and that led me to dip my toe into reading horror, because I thought, well, that would be much less scarier than watching a horror movie. And that just I did kind of baby step my way in, and and then I'd watch TV censored horror movies. It's like, oh well, if it's on primetime TV, it's they took all the bad stuff out. So I kind of worked my way in, and horror has become like a very big part of my life. So yeah, it's brought me a lot of joy, and a lot of self-reflection on some of the things that meaning one of them is these two Alex Garland movies. So yeah, I know this was a bit long, but we had a lot to say about these two movies, and everything around it.
No, and that's the beauty. And look for the end of the year, because Thomas and I will do some top 5 or top 10 of the last things that we've covered, and like why they're important to us. And we'll do like maybe a short video, we'll maybe do a long video, or we'll do something. I don't want to liberally apply a license to my co-host here to nominate him for more time than he than he can spare. But at the end of the day, really, this is about finding just good, solid entertainment that fulfills you. That and there's different levels of satiation right there. So like it could be like a action one, it could be this, it could be that. But like I'm very excited for our year recap. And maybe beyond. Maybe we'll do a special month therein in December. We'll see. But please, clearly there are 26, 27 folks that have subscribed to us, that have watched us. The folks, I don't talk about this much, but like in a nutshell, it goes like this. It goes like, 1% of the folks comment, they make content, yada, yada. The other 9%, like they say, they comment, they watch routinely, whatever. The other 90% that's left is folks that are just watching generally. Maybe they return, maybe they don't, whatever. But in year 2, we are looking to really grow our passion and to find more. Because again, this only happened because me and Thomas talked. And we said, hey, I like this, you like that. Hey, I've always wanted to do this. Yeah, I like that. And we have this thing. And we are a year into this thing. And again, I can't give enough praise to my co-host. He's been very patient with me throughout all this, with my schedule and whatnot. And we have, at the end of the day, rain or shine, sleet or snow, just like USPS, or maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what the current state is like. We are there, and we will always be there. Hopefully.
Hey,
so long
we don't. Yeah, we don't kick around the movies and throw it on your door with this disrespect. We bring you the movies pristine and beautiful. So yeah, we're much better than USB.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I love to watch a hate watch or entertainment or whatever, or live vicariously through other folks that have that will watch certain things that I won't. And there's that cool aspect of it. But at the end of the day, I guess in closing, I would leave the viewer with this. The first novels that I read for Ian M. Banks, he passed away like a few years ago, sadly. But at the end of the day, he's not going to be creating content anymore. And this is very true as we've the vast library that we've accumulated up to this point. Like, so when you find something good and special, it's natural and human to want to share it. So like at that, I would just leave it at that. Please, if you feel compelled, share our stuff out far and wide, please.
Well, you say that Ian Banks won't write anymore, but unless his future AI generated, Ian Banks may write some more.
That's a whole other thing. And if you are up on it, you should check out our grab bag later this week.
Yep, little breadcrumbs leading you to that. But yeah, like, subscribe, hit that bell, slam that bell, slam that like button, and all that stuff. Leave a comment. Yeah, tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you want us to cover.
Yeah, and if you want to have an argument, I'll give it to you. So hit that dislike button, tell me why, and maybe we can have a little back and forth on the video.
Yep. Remember, I'm Mr. Good Cop. He's Mr. Bad Cop.
and with that being said, I'm Mike.
And I'm Thomas. We'll leave you with some cosmic horror. Ooh.